NinjaTown is an unassuming tower defense game featuring a bubbly cast of cute-looking characters called Wee Ninjas, created by Sean Smith, the creator of a toy line, Shawnimals. It was published by South Peak Games, which I keep reading as South Park Games. It looks too cutesy, like a Flash game that had too much money and turned it into a DS game to add to the collection of bad games the console harbors. I vaguely remember my brother coming back from shopping one day and handing this to me, saying that since he had been able to get something, to make it fair, he had to pick something up for me as well. I suppose he decided this was cute enough that I would like it, as this was a time before we were able to look up reviews and descriptions of games on the spot. Or before we were smart enough to look at the backs of covers, because I have no idea why he thought I, a kid who played Kirby and Spyro religiously, would like a tower defense game featuring ninjas. This game is practically an enigma and a great example of never judge a book by its cover, because the game was well received online, hitting 4 out of 5s and high 80% from multiple sites. I could not for the life of me remember if I enjoyed this game or not, but according to my old game file, I liked it until about halfway, reaching 55% before I would ever pick it back up again years later for this video. Going back into it, I was slightly optimistic, and although I had a few grievances with the game, all in all, I honestly believe it deserves the score it got. You play as the Old Master Ninja, an elder in the town of NinjaTown, who helps train and command Wee Ninjas. The game opens up with a small cutscene showing the general plot. Everyone seems to be enjoying life, living peacefully in their respective communities, and showing each of the areas you will eventually come to. Old Master Ninja is awoken by one of his pupils and informed that the volcano Mount Hiroshi is erupting due to an evil ball of goop that Mr. Demon, the monster from the cutscene, tossed in, and that NinjaTown is also being invaded by his minions, Wee Devils. Old Master Ninja takes up mantle and, with the help from his consultant, Ninja Consultant, lead the Wee Ninjas into battle to defend NinjaTown from the encroaching army. And thus we're introduced to the gameplay. Tower defense games are fortunately fairly straightforward. Using different fighters and assist buildings protect something, usually exit gates but sometimes physical objects, from waves of enemies that move throughout a linear or semi-linear path. All of the fighters and assists are fairly straightforward, and despite the large assortment, none of them ever seem less useful than the others. You have 4 brawlers, 4 rangers, and a handful of assist buildings. Your basic Wee Ninjas do basic damage but can move pretty quickly, allowing them to chase enemies that are getting away. Anti-ninjas hit hard but lack the speed that the basic ninjas do. Business ninjas are much weaker than the other two, but their speed and ability to slow down enemies makes them useful. And the mountain ninjas are very powerful, but you only get 1 per hut, and their high cost makes it hard to fill your spots with them. On the other side, rangers stay similar throughout. Snipers are the weakest of the ranged attackers and don't do much to ground enemies, but they're pretty cheap. White ninjas have very low strength, but they're able to slow down and freeze enemies, making them very useful in mob points. Forest ninjas have slightly weakened attack compared to your average sniper, but their speed makes them worth considering. And lava ninjas are probably the least balanced, as their attack power is stronger than even the mountain ninja, and the only real thing that hinders them is their speed. But a few good investments could mean an entire wall of lava ninjas that can stop everything. The modifier buildings are a hit or miss, as the most useful ones outweigh any of the others pretty greatly. The Watchtower allows you to increase your ninja's view range, the Training Dojo increases your ninja's strength, and the Green Tea Hut boosts their speed. The other 3 I never used, as I didn't see much usefulness in them. Blacksmith increases their defense, Infirmary heals fallen ninjas faster, and the Ninja Tower gives you more cookies and happiness to fill your Old Master Ninja powers. Speaking of, the Old Master Ninja powers I also used fairly lightly. The only one I actually used outside of seeing what they do is the Get Off My Lawn power, which has you blow into the microphone to push enemies back. I never had any use for the other ones, although the Wheel of Efficiency gives you very powerful buffs, so I could see it being used when there's no other need for the powers. Finally, tokens are items that you can throw at enemies to assist your ninjas in taking them down. Each does a different thing, but the ninja droppings is probably the most useful, as it's a damage over time attack that hits a range of enemies. From there on, you choose open spots and place down your ninjas and try to be as strategic as possible. Whether you want to cut off enemies at the start of their journey, or meet them at the end in a big rush, or everything in between. You can also upgrade your ninjas for extra power, at the sacrifice of less ground being covered by other ninjas. The game starts off pretty easy, but gradually gets more intense, until about the halfway point when I started getting my butt kicked. After that point, it sort of became this odd up and down of sometimes it's easy and sometimes you'll be replaying the same stage 5 times in a row until you finally do it with a D ranking. The worst stages by far were the ones with the cannons you had to fire. Trying to manage your ninjas while also paying attention to the enemies you now have to deal with manually can be pretty frustrating, especially since the cannons have a wait period before firing and a reload time. Another thing this game struggles with is how long it is. Considering each map can take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, and there's 9 levels, each with 4 stages, it can add up really quickly. And with how samey the gameplay is, with very little added on to make it more interesting, it can get pretty boring really quickly, especially if you're not playing it in short bursts. The story makes up for it, keeping it lighthearted and cracking jokes in every second sentence, never once forgetting its silly and cute setting. Some of the jokes are a bit dated, but the majority of them still hold fairly strong. My favorite character, despite being fairly ridiculously stupid, was the mayor, because I too like to hide under my desk and softly weep to escape all my problems. Every character, despite being fairly basic, has a lot of life in them, from the wee ninja that pops by every now and then to Feroshi the dino slug, who falls into the cliche of all-powerful but a giant dweeb. Their simplistic design and lively personalities make them fairly memorable and likable, including our antagonist Mr. Demon, who was revealed to be trying to contaminate the ninja cookie supply with something called dark syrup. The syrup itself apparently told him that doing so would help him take over the world, and people would finally sign his yearbook. Oh god. This final boss has 3 forms. Don't get me wrong, I still managed to do it in one try, but it still took me half an hour. The final cutscene is pretty rewarding, getting to watch all of our ninja allies beat the snot out of Mr. Demon and the evil assistant that I never mentioned because he wasn't really that important other than elongating gameplay by convincing the mayor to make rash decisions that let more wheat devils in, you jerk! The bad guys go scurrying off back to the dark forest, not gaining any friends in the process, showing that if you're a jerk, you aren't going to get anything good out of being one, which is a nice change of pace. The credits roll, and as your final reward, you get to see some of the concept art for the game, which is a pretty nice bonus if you're into that sort of thing. I am absolutely into that sort of thing. I honestly think this game should have been shorter, with maybe just challenge modes instead if you wanted people to keep playing, which I absolutely would have if I didn't end up getting tired of being forced to play more to beat it. Otherwise, it's an alright game with an art style that would throw quite a few people for a loop, and even make them pass it up for more serious looking games. This is probably one of the only times I'll ever get to say this about any game I cover, but NinjaTown is an overlooked gem on the DS, and if you like tower defense games or strategy in any shape, then absolutely take the time to play through it. Just not all in one sitting. It's probably for the best that NinjaTown didn't get wildly popular, because I don't think I'd be able to handle a NinjaTown fandom. I don't want to know what that would look like.